If you're watching this, there's a good chance you've already tried to explain the situation to yourself 100 different ways. You've replayed conversations. You've softened their words. You've questioned your reactions. You've wondered if you're just difficult, sensitive, dramatic, or expecting too much. And what keeps you stuck isn't confusion about how you feel. It's confusion about whether you're allowed to feel that way. Because the person you're dealing with isn't openly cruel. They don't always scream. They don't hit. They don't behave like the villains people warn you about. They drain you quietly. They exhaust you emotionally. They twist responsibility. They make you feel guilty for having limits. They punish you for needing clarity. They leave you doubting yourself after almost every interaction. And yet, they can also be charming, affectionate, regretful, convincing, which is why you keep asking the wrong question. You keep asking, "What's wrong with me?" when the real question is, "What is this relationship doing to my nervous system?" This isn't about blame, it's about impact. Because psychologically speaking, damage doesn't require malicious intent. It only requires repetition. And when your body feels tense before someone calls, when your chest tightens before you speak, when you rehearse your words to avoid conflict, when you leave conversations feeling smaller than when you entered, that's not sensitivity, that's conditioning. Here's something most people never hear. People who remain in toxic dynamics are rarely weak. They are rarely selfish. They are rarely unintelligent. They are often deeply empathetic, highly responsible, and emotionally trained to tolerate discomfort. Many of them learned early in life that harmony mattered more than honesty, that being good meant being agreeable, that love required endurance, that saying no created consequences. So when someone crosses a line, their instinct isn't resistance, it's self-doubt. They ask, "Did I misunderstand? Maybe I could have said it better. I don't want to make things worse." This is not kindness, it's survival behavior that never got updated. And survival behavior has a cost. Because every time you override your own discomfort to keep the peace, your nervous system learns a dangerous lesson. My needs are negotiable. My boundaries are optional. My reality can be rewritten. Over time, this erodes something fundamental: your sense of self-trust. You stop knowing when you're allowed to be upset. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop recognizing when something is wrong because wrong has become familiar. And familiarity is powerful. That's why toxic dynamics don't feel shocking. They feel normal, predictable, strangely comfortable. Psychologically, this is what keeps people trapped. Not fear, not weakness, but conditioning. Especially when the relationship carries emotional weight. A parent, a partner, a sibling, a long-term friend, a boss who controls your livelihood. Because when harm comes from someone you care about, your mind splits. One part of you sees the pattern clearly, the manipulation, the dismissal, the repeated boundary violations. Another part clings to the good moments, the apologies, the shared history, the hope that if you just explain it right, things will change. That internal conflict is exhausting, and guilt fills the gap. Guilt for being upset, guilt for wanting distance, guilt for imagining a life without them. But guilt is not evidence of wrongdoing. It's often evidence of training. Training that taught you that loyalty requires self-abandonment, that love means absorbing damage quietly, that walking away makes you cruel. Let's be precise here. A healthy relationship does not require you to shrink. It does not require you to constantly explain yourself. It does not require you to tolerate anxiety in exchange for connection. And this is where many people get stuck. They try to understand toxic behavior through personality. They didn't mean it. They're stressed. They've had a hard life. They're actually a good person. But psychology doesn't measure health by intentions. It measures patterns. And patterns tell the truth words try to hide. If someone consistently ignores your boundaries, if accountability is always directed, if responsibility is never owned, if your discomfort is minimized or mocked, if you're blamed for their reactions, if you're punished for asserting yourself, then what you're in is not a relationship built on mutual respect. It's a dynamic built on control. Control doesn't always look aggressive. Often it looks subtle. Guilt, withdrawal, emotional pressure, silence, shame, confusion. Over time, these tactics train you to self-police. You think before you speak. You soften your needs. You anticipate their reactions. You manage their emotions. You become hyper-aware, and eventually you stop asking for what you need at all. That's when people say, "I don't even recognize myself anymore." Because toxic dynamics don't destroy you all at once, they dismantle you gradually. Now here's the part most people don't want to hear. This doesn't stop because you're patient. It doesn't stop because you explain better. It doesn't stop because you love harder. It stops when the behavior stops working, which means something has to change on your side, not emotionally, behaviorally. This is where boundaries come in. And no, not the Instagram version of boundaries. A real boundary is not a request. It's not a conversation. It's not a negotiation. It's a limit paired with action. A boundary sounds like, if this happens, I will do this. Not to punish, not to threaten, but to protect. Without consequences, boundaries are just wishes, and people who benefit from crossing them have no incentive to respect them. That's why enforcing boundaries feels terrifying at first, because you're not just changing behavior, you're breaking a contract. The unspoken contract that said, "I will absorb discomfort so you don't have to." When that contract breaks, expect resistance, guilt-tripping, anger, victimhood, blame. Not because you're wrong, but because the dynamic is losing its grip. This is also where people sabotage themselves. They explain too much, they justify, they debate, they defend. But explanation is exactly what manipulators rely on, because explanations invite argument, and arguments shift the focus away from your boundary to your reasoning. You don't need them to agree. You don't need them to understand. You need them to experience consistency. This is why emotional detachment becomes crucial. Not coldness, not cruelty, but neutrality. You stop feeding the chaos with reactions. You stop offering your emotions as leverage. You stop trying to correct their narrative. You become hyper-predictable, boring, unmovable. And when emotional reward disappears, manipulation loses power. For some relationships, this creates enough distance to stabilize things. For others, it reveals a harder truth, that the connection only existed as long as you were compliant. And that's when a more painful decision emerges. Not everyone is meant to have full access to you. Some people earn distance, some earn limited contact, some lose access entirely. Not because you're vindictive, but because your nervous system cannot heal in an environment that keeps injuring it. Ending or reducing contact is not cruelty. It's not abandonment. It's not revenge. It's self-preservation. And yes, you will grieve, not just the person, but the version of the relationship you hoped would exist. That grief is real, and necessary. Because clarity often hurts before it frees. Here's the truth most people only realize in hindsight. Peace is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly. In the absence of dread, in the absence of self-doubt, in the absence of emotional noise. When you're no longer rehearsing conversations in your head, when your body relaxes without permission, when your mind stops orbiting someone else's behavior, that's when you realize something important. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. And if you're at the point where this is starting to click, where the pattern is becoming impossible to ignore, where staying feels heavier than leaving, that doesn't mean you're heartless.